We have been counting the days, and at this point, we can possibly start counting the hours to National Signing Day. We are just about 6 days away from February 3rd, and the final names on the dotted lines for Pac-12 schools. This is Pac-12 Breakdown. We come your way every Wednesday night at 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock out there on the West Coast, and we bring in the very best bloggers in the Pac-12, including Donald King from Last Word on Sports. We've got Mike W.R. from Gojo Bruin, and also Nick Dempsey, who joins us from Conquest Chronicles and also Rule of Tree. And we knocked around Stanford and USC pretty good last week. So, Mike, we're going to give you center stage on the UCLA Bruins. And Jim Moore has done an outstanding job on the recruiting trail since he arrived with the Bruins. The results on the field have been mixed in regards to expectations, but how does this current class shake out at this point?
This is going to be a really exciting class, mainly because the Bruins seem to be getting the players that they need at this point. You know, there's a lot of depth issues at certain position groups, and not only has Jim Moore and company solidified, locked down several different players at different positions. I mean, for one thing, for example, they have two quarterbacks committed in this class. So first off, that's really good depth for Josh Rosen going forward. With that means that he could probably do a lot more than he did this year. Although Josh Rosen had a pretty outstanding freshman year, but at the same time, it's good. It's interesting how UCLA is recruiting specifically because the former offensive coordinator Noel Mazzoni, is now with Texas A&M. They promoted Kennedy Palomalu, and so now he's taken over. And Jim Moore said one of the things they want to do is start utilizing more tight ends and fullbacks. They don't have any tight ends on the roster right now. Their only tight end, Thomas Doherty, declared for the draft a couple weeks ago. So, on top of that, they hired a tight ends coach. A little weird seeing, you hire a coach for a position that has no players, but UCLA was targeting
I'll take that,
players. Yeah. Rip Shearer, that's who his name is. And but with recruiting, you're seeing that this, the Bruins are going in the direction that they need to. They have a fullback, Jalen Starks, at a Crespi in Los Angeles. They have Jordan Wilson, a tight end. I believe he's from Tennessee. They might. They were in the hunt for Thaddeus Moss, Randy Moss's son, but he committed to North Carolina State earlier this week. And one of the big ones, he's uncommitted right now, but Devin Asiasi, he's a big time player that could be leaning towards the Bruins, but we'll see. Until they put their ink on that national letter of intent, who knows exactly what's going to happen. But for now, it's pretty exciting. The Bruins got a huge commit last week in J.J. Molson. I talked about UCLA got two quarterback commits. One of them, J.J. Molson, a four-star who used to be committed to Arizona, or is one of the Arizona schools. I'm pretty sure it's Arizona. Decommitted late December and is now heading to Westwood. So that's huge for the Bruins. One of the other things one of the other positions that they're loading up on is wide receiver. They have this kid Dymond Lee. Why am I blanking on his name? Theo Howard, who was an Oregon commit. That kid's a speedster, and that's something the Bruins need. Not only depth, but they never really had a guy that can just outrun the defense, and Theo Howard seems to be that guy. So things are looking up for the Bruins, even on special teams. They have the number 2 kicker, the number 2 punter, and the number 2 long snapper. And if you saw UCLA's special teams this year, that they need some improvement. So that's really good going forward. And some prospects, that the Bruins are leaning towards, or some prospects that are leaning towards the Bruins. One of the biggest ones is Mike Juarez, who was a USC commit, and he decommitted right around the time that the whole Steve Sarkisian drama was going on. So since then, he seems to be favoring UCLA, although he also has Ole Miss in his top 2. Another one is Boss Tagaloa, who is just big time, defensive lineman, and he seems to be a UCLA lean. So there are a couple guys that the Bruins are they might have a chance for. This might be one of the biggest national signing days for UCLA in the Jim Mora era, and that's saying something. Seeing looking at the talent that they brought in, like last year they brought in Josh Rosen, to kind of bridge the gap from Brett Hundley. They get 2 more quarterbacks. So it's just little things like that are really helping UCLA's recruiting process, and hopefully will help them win a little bit more games, be a little bit more consistent next year.
Mike, you did say Rip Shearer, correct?
Yes.
It's the tight ends coach. He's the former head coach at Memphis for the Memphis Tigers.
Yeah.
Little note.
He's been
I remember him losing every Mississippi State and Ole Miss when I was down there in the SEC.
Yeah, he was well, before he got the tight end coach position, he was a administrative assistant, kind of like a right-hand man to Jim Mora on the administrative side. So, he has the experience. So, if that's the direction you're going, you're going to need a coach. Why not? Let's see how it goes.
Now we know that much goes into the decision for these kids in choosing a school. Familiarity with maybe the locale, the coaching staff, the particular positions coach, the prospect of winning, the prospect of getting to the NFL. But when Thad Moss is thinking about going to NC State as opposed to going to UCLA and playing with Josh Rosen, throwing him the football, Jacoby Brissett has left North Carolina State, I'm not going to be too sure that they have anybody to replace Jacoby Brissett at that caliber, that he wants to go play in the Belk Bowl every year at NC State. That, again, a lot goes into that, but it seems a little questionable on the surface.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I mean, it's he's from North Carolina. It's tough for these kids to go across the country, and with UCLA, they've actually lost a lot of, not a lot, a handful of players to homesickness. There was Chris Clark, the #1 tight end in the nation. He played 1 game and then went back east. Unfortunately, he transferred a couple different times. There was also a center, UCLA's center in waiting, I forget his name, Fred Uluperi, got homesick. He's transferring back to Hawaii. So it's it's unfortunate that stuff like that's happening, but you got to reload every year, and that's where the craziness and calamity and love of National Signing Day comes in.
Hey, Mike, before we let the Garnet and the Cardinal take over and make your life miserable here, who are those guys out there that, if you're able to get them, right now they're listing maybe 3 or 4 schools, and maybe UCLA's on the list. You don't have a real good read, but if they make that call to go to UCLA, that turns a really good class into maybe an even better class.
Yeah, I think right now in Scout, I believe they're ranked 13th. Rivals, I think it's 10th. So they're in good position right now. But if they can, somehow flip guys or convince guys like Jack Jones, who he's a 5-star athlete, I believe, who likely going to USC. But if somehow in the 12th hour, 11th hour, the Bruins can bring him to Westwood, that's going to be huge. Other players, who are some of the other guys that Darian Owens, actually he's a commit. There are several different players who, it seems that UCLA, comparing them to USC, they're actually in the hunt. They're battling for these big-time recruits, and that's something that UCLA never got in the Carl Durrell or Rick Neuheisel era. So Jim Mora's doing something right. He's not going to get them all. We've in Bruin land have been, a little bit disappointed in National Signing Day, but for the most part, we've gotten a lot of recruits who have been able to come in and for day one, and then other guys that take a little bit more time to develop, but for the most part, they're getting depth, they're getting some talent, so it's good, and right now this class could be the biggest in Jim Mora's tenure at UCLA.
So we'll make the natural transition from UCLA to USC. I know that the situation's pretty stable there, Nick. Can you just fill us in with any nuggets involving the Trojans?
Well, I'm sure everybody read about the Velus Jones Jr. situation. He's a 3-star wide receiver who has been committed to USC for quite some time. at the tail end of last week, he announced on Twitter that he actually has decided to commit to Oklahoma, and that left a lot of people scratching their head. He didn't really say why. He just said he wanted to do Oklahoma. I believe the next day, possibly 2 days later, he then announced, "Oh, I actually am still committing." He decommitted from USC, committed to Oklahoma, then decommitted from Oklahoma and recommitted to USC, all in the span of about 48 hours, maybe 24 hours. That was sort of the big story. I think now they've finally got their coaching staff complete. Just shy of National Signing Day, which better late than never, I guess. So now they're really making a push because they've got a little bit of catching up to do. They have a lot of wide receivers. They don't have a lot in the way of linebackers, which is concerning because the defensive coordinator they brought in, Clancy Pendergast, loves his linebackers, uses a ton of them, and I think they've got maybe 1 or 2 linebackers coming in that are hard commits as of now. Mike talked about Mike Juarez. He's a 5-star guy. That would be a huge get, and I think he's kind of cool on USC right now. So I think they've got to focus on linebackers for sure. But now they're going all in. They've got everybody staffed up, ready to go, and I think they're going to make a huge push.
Hey, Don, I would say outside of the Pete Carroll prime years of 2003 to 2008, I have not seen, going back to USC of John McKay, a team separate itself from the pack in the Pac-12 like Stanford did. They were definitely the best team.
Yep.
Obviously, if they get more talent, then they could further separate themselves. I don't necessarily see that happening, but they are in that prime position. Your thoughts about the current class?
Yeah, the current class is solid. Not great, but solid and strong and addressing areas of need. The crown jewel, if you will, of the class, KJ Costello, has been rock solid for 2 years now from a commit standpoint. He's been admitted, no issues there. Caden Smith, the #1 tight end in the nation out of Utah, has been rock solid, so that's a great get. And a couple other good skill position players, kid Semi Fehoko, a couple of good defensive backs as well. But what gets the faithful like myself excited are the defensive line talent. A lot of good folks being restocked up front, and kids with good size on them already. There's a little bit of uneasiness about Michael Williams down in Texas and making sure he actually signs. He's kind of characterized as a soft verbal so far. But this kid's already 6'1.5", 305. You don't need a whole. You probably want to do a little body sculpting, but you're not worried about him, getting blown off the line of scrimmage kind of right out of the gate. And there are several other good defensive tackle prospects. Guys in the 275 to 290 range right now coming out of high school, so looking good. Among the folks kind of still out there, the only news really to be had this coming week, there are 2 guys in particular I have my eye on. Jeffrey McCullough, the outside linebacker from Houston, Texas, but he's still got 5 schools kind of on his list, so that one's probably a little bit of a crapshoot. Probably doesn't look like it's likely to go our way. But there's a cornerback also from the Houston area, South Lake, Texas, Carroll High School, which I believe was Andrew Luck's school, Obi Ebo, and he has whittled it down to 2. So he's looking at Stanford and Ohio State. So, hope it's a coin flip. Hope Coach Shaw and Coach Aquina really kind of prevailed upon him to make the right decision and come on out to Palo Alto. And you get those 2 guys and go ahead and solidify Mike Williams, and I think it's a solid class, and maybe not the top class in the conference, but arguably it could be the top class in the conference, particularly when you consider how well it fits all of the needs. In addition to Caden Smith, there are 2 other big, strong, fairly quick-looking tight ends, including the kid who flipped from Boston College a week before last. So filling that need well too, with Austin Hooper moving on to the NFL. And Eric Cotton moving over to the defensive side of the ball. So tight end has become a need, but it's one of those things that, kids have come in and been coached up real well in recent history at Stanford, and there's reason for optimism there as well. So it looks to be a rock-solid class. Maybe not blow the doors off like that 2012 class with the five-star offensive linemen who, literally grew up and just blasted everybody this past season. But still a really, really good class in terms of filling needs and kind of creating some incremental depth in places where it was sorely needed.
You tried to slip in that kid needs to make the right decision comment between Palo Alto and Columbus, Ohio on me, Don.
Yep. My son won't be happy with me about that, but it is what it is.
And I also think there is some unwritten rule somewhere that there have to be at least a handful of Mike Williams playing college football in the NFL at all times.
Yeah, apparently. Good Lord. Yeah, what a common name. I will say I'm very much looking forward to seeing our punter commit Jet Toner, who is absolutely a future all-name team candidate. From out in the state of Hawaii. I just think that one is fantastic.
Yeah, I actually when we wrote the story about him committing to Stanford, I actually checked several times in several places. I'm like, is this a real thing? Like, is this actually his name? Let's just make sure before we put it out there for the world and we look ridiculous.
Right. Want to make sure you're not getting.
It is a fantastic name. It is his actual name.
Yeah.
And he is he's got a great leg on him. But yeah.
Joe Wisnant and I are going to get to work on another all-name team article like we did late last season.
Nice.
I was just about to say, on one of these slow May or June Wednesday nights, we may need to come with our best names.
Yep. Jill and I have already collaborated on one. Go seek it out on Last Word on Sports. But, yeah, we may be due for another one. Moms keep having babies and keep naming them very interesting things. So we can count on that.
All right. I'm going to go right in order here because we wrapped up the recruiting. I think we were all set for National Signing Day. Hopefully we can pull on as many from the Pac-12 contribution list that we have to participate next week. But before we let you go, I'll start with Don. We'll go from left to right in regards to what you guys are working on or have available on your site that you'd like people to check out. So Don, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, the big news for Last Word is a total site redesign which just went live within the last 72 hours. New look that we've been working on for quite a while. Feel great about it, so go check that out overall. And obviously, great coverage of both, NFL draft season and college football National Signing Day.
Yeah, and the new design also includes a very wise decision you made on your college football page.
Yeah, no question. So, you want to get a good look at the quite handsome and very erudite Mark Rogers. Please check out the Last Word on Sports college football homepage on a weekly, if not daily, basis.
I asked for it, didn't I?
I speak nothing but truth, Mark, and you know this.
This is only because I bring on guys like you to fill out the information and provide the real nuts and bolts of this. It has nothing to do with my weak commentary from time to time. But appreciate it.
Looking forward to it. I actually think it's going to be great. It's a win-win for both of us, I think.
Yeah, and especially if I take some decorating tips from the likes of all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Mike, what are you working on these days?
Recruiting. That and being a little bit somber about UCLA basketball, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So they got their butts kicked by USC at home in Pauley Pavilion. So that's basically the way the UCLA basketball season is going. So I'm very happy to be writing about recruiting and National Signing Day. One of my recruiting specialists, Michael Hanna, who actually talked with you last year about UCLA's recruiting class. We're going to be tackling recruiting for the next week now. That's a week away. And we're just following up on any leads for any commits, anyone that has UCLA in their top 3, top 5, whatever it is. Michael Hanna actually just released his offensive big board today, which basically gives, he does a beautiful job with that. He lists not only the commits, but some of the stronger prospects that are leaning, and he gives a really good analysis of a lot of the recruits. So he released the offensive big board today. Or Friday. He hasn't told me when he's going to release it. The defensive big board is going to come up. So go to gojobruin.com and you can check out what's going on with UCLA football recruiting. You can check out the tab, at the top of the page, football recruiting, or check out both me, Mike Rigolato, or Michael Hanna, our articles about what's been going on in the last 2 weeks. So it's basically just keeping up with all the news and information that's coming out of Westwood. So that's what we're doing.
So, Mike, this is a football-only show, but I'm going to ask for it. Short answer here. Why is UCLA not great in basketball anymore?
I don't know. Things are weird when UCLA is not great and USC is kicking some butt. So,
Yeah.
what world are we living in?
A long time. Well, it's been about 10 years since you went to the Final Four.
Oh,
Yeah,
only 10
that
years.
too.
How you get by.
Basketball.
The little thing called no defense. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you have for us on Rule of Tree and Conquest Chronicles?
Well, on Conquest, we're actually we're playing catch up on basketball. I'll be honest. I set up the editorial calendar. I did not think we're going to have to do so much coverage on basketball. We've had several days where our entire front page was basketball stories on a USC Trojan site.
Yep.
So
Enfield looking like a good hire.
Yeah. Not a lot of folks were happy with Pat Hayden for a while on that hire. Not that it's hard to be mad at Pat Hayden these days, but
True.
So we're going to be doing a lot of. We just got done talking about coaches and who's going where, so we're going to be doing recruiting for the next week. Looks like we're going to be talking about basketball fairly deep into March. After that, we're going to be following up on the draft. And then probably get some baseball coverage in there too. And then before we know it, we're back to football preseason. On the stand. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you see, in my book, Pat Hayden could do just about anything he wanted to, because the Pat Hayden that is the USC athletic director is he's not the Pat Hayden that I remember growing up watching play for the Los Angeles Rams, and then he was a TNT NFL announcer. That's my Pat Hayden, and he's forever going to be the Pat Hayden that I remember, the first Rams quarterback that I knew when I was 6 years old. That's Pat Hayden, so he can do no wrong in my book.
Well, I would be careful where you say that and around who you say that.
In the previous generation said that about Mike Garrett until they hated him too, so it happens.
We could also bring up another USC alum in that book who I also would have said,
yep,
Mr. Everything, he's the greatest.
Yep.
You know what? Next week's entire show, let's just do it on USC athletic directors. Get a good half hour out of that, apparently. On Rule of Tree, basketball is going to be interesting.
It already is. I was on Rule of Tree earlier, and a lot of Johnny Dawkins chatter there. Including some blockage of the main account by him. His skin is getting a little thin, and his seat is getting a little hot.
Yeah, we had a few writers post some articles that probably weren't super popular in the AD's office down on the farm, but so basketball is going to be very interesting. Postseason basketball, or after the basketball season's over, might be more interesting. Plenty of guys in the draft we're going to be talking about, and Stanford sports have won a national championship every year for the last 40 years, so we're going to have plenty of track and gymnastics and some of the less popular sports, but sports that Stanford is very, very good at, nationally elite. So we'll be doing plenty of that. But yeah, so we're gonna hit everything. But basketball is going to be the big one at USC after recruiting. It's going to be, which is weird. I'm going to have to get prepared for it now. And is a real thing. Like, it's not a drill. USC is good at basketball. Let's get ready.
Love it.
All right, enough of that. It's all football all the time. Pac-12 breakdown every Wednesday night, and we come your way at 8 o'clock Pacific time. And that's Donald King from Last Word on Sports. That's Mike WR. That's also Nick Dempsey from Rule of Three and Conquest Chronicles. Of course, Mike joins us from Gojo Bruin. All right, boys. Next Wednesday, we're going to have to bring it strong. National Signing Day.
NSD. Can't wait.
Already stocked up on coffee.
Very good. We'll catch you next time.
That
Have a
5
good week,
a.m. wake up
fellas.
call. 4 a.m. wake up call, probably.
Yeah.
All right, take care, guys.
We'll see you.
Good night.